It was supposed to be a simple wildlife study. Being a wildlife biologist sounded awesome when I was younger. It was my dream. I thought I'd be like Steve Irwin, getting my own TV show and stuff. But it was mostly just tagging birds and collecting scat samples. Boring stuff like that. Just when I was beginning to resent my career choice, I got an offer. There was an ecological study being conducted by a private company up in Alaska, way up north near the Brooks Range. I was told the purpose was simply to observe the wildlife in the area and record their behaviors, maybe going out to collect samples occasionally. There was a state-of-the-art facility that had been constructed at the site, which included motion sensors, telescopes, a parabolic reflector, satellite internet access, and housing for 6 people. Myself and 5 others would be staying there for the duration of the study, which was 6 months. I was a little wary when they told me that, but the promise of a $250,000 check at the end eased those concerns. Once I packed up and got ready to leave, it took me a little over a week just to get to the site. I was in Miami at the time, so I flew from there to Seattle, then took a 5-day ferry ride from Seattle to Anchorage, then flew up to Point Hope where I met my new companions. A rep from the company greeted us there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mr. Simmons. I'd like to thank you all for agreeing to come here. Now, do you understand what will be expected of you for the next 6 months?
There was a collection of "yes, sir" uttered. Then he spoke again.
I have a confession to make. We weren't entirely honest with you about the purpose of this study, but I think you'll find the truth significantly more interesting. Before I say any more, I will need you all to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
What if we refuse? I spoke up.
Then we will arrange for you to fly home.
I didn't come all the way up here just to turn right around, so I signed the NDA, as did the other 5.
Okay, why don't we step inside? I have something to show you.
Inside a tiny conference room, Mr. Simmons powered up a projector.
You have all been brought here to investigate a series of unusual animal deaths that have occurred in the region in the past few years. Take a look.
A slideshow appeared on the wall. A grizzly, 3 moose, and an entire pack of gray wolves, looking like they had been bludgeoned to death. What stood out to me, though, was that none of the bodies appeared to have been eaten at all.
Several factors have set these apart from normal predation. No consumption of the bodies, the brutality of the attacks, and the manner of killing. There were no lacerations or bite marks on any of the bodies. This was done by brute force, but what prompted us to organize this research study was this.
The next few pictures made me sick. They showed the remains of a campsite, with several corpses scattered around. A man, a woman, and 2 little boys.
This incident occurred in November of last year. These are the Adamsons, a family of 4. They went on a 6-day camping trip. When they didn't make it back, the state troopers went to investigate. This is what they found.
A few more pictures, one showing a shotgun laying next to the man's body, a small plane, and blood drops leading away from the scene.
It appears that Mr. Adamson was able to get off a shot at their assailant. We weren't able to match the blood samples to any animal known to inhabit the region, or, for that matter, any animal known at all. All this evidence has only one logical explanation. We're dealing with an undiscovered species, a new alpha predator.
He paused for a moment, I guess letting us absorb that information.
Your job will be to gather information on this creature. It's already killed 4 people, and we need to know if it poses a danger to population centers. Now, there is a potential element of risk to this. I understand if you don't want to go any further. If you wish to withdraw, now is the time to say so.
I was getting chills. This was exactly the kind of thing I wanted to do since I was a child. No way in hell I was backing out. None of us backed out. Mr. Simmons led us to where our helicopter was waiting. We got in, buckled up, and took off. Almost 2 hours later, we touched down at the lab site. Stepping off the helicopter into the frigid air, I got my first look at the lab. It looked amazing. The exterior was all metal, reflecting the sunlight like a mirror, and it was divided into 2 halves, the laboratory and the common area.
The entire structure was elevated on these big hydraulic legs, probably as a precaution against the mysterious new predator. An array of solar panels stood next to the building. The windows were really thick, probably about 6 inches thick. I later learned they were shatterproof. The inside of the lab was all shiny and high-tech, monitors all over the place, microscopes, a fridge for samples, telescopes, and a large safe. The common area consisted of 6 bunk beds, spaced around the room, a TV with several game consoles, what looked like 50 or so movies, and a pool table. After our brief little tour, Mr. Simmons gathered us in the common area to address us. There was a man with him who hadn't flown in with us. "Before I leave you to your work, I have a few more things to say. First, I'd like to introduce you to Sergeant Parker. He'll be staying with you for the next couple of days to make sure you have some familiarity using weapons. I pray it won't be necessary, but it would be foolish not to take that precaution. Under no circumstances are any of you to go outside unarmed, or after dark. Second, as the person with the highest education level here, consider Dr. Davis to be in charge. Third and final, you will submit a complete report of your observations and findings at the end of every day, no matter how insignificant they are. Now, I've taken up enough of your time. I'll let you begin." This was hands down the coolest thing I'd ever done. I'm in charge of a classified project to document an undiscovered apex predator. I was thinking that when we were done, I'd be on magazine covers, getting TV interviews, and becoming a household name. Over the next couple of months, I got to know my new coworkers better. James, a microbiologist, who was married to Samantha, also a microbiologist. They were here to study any samples we found. Randall, an ethologist. His job was to go over the known attacks and try to find a pattern. Michael was our IT guy, making sure all the computers were running smoothly. And finally, there was Kimberly, a forensic examiner. I took an instant dislike to her, since the first thing she did was start complaining about how she got the bottom bunk and I got the top. "You know what, Kim? Go get your PhD, then you can have the top bunk." Another thing that she apparently didn't understand was the concept of rationing. She burned through her entire carton of cigarettes, which was supposed to last her a week, in 3 days. Then she started taking mine. After I told her she wasn't allowed to smoke inside, she started referring to me as Dr. Bitch, which is about as polite as the nickname I gave her, Princess Crybaby. It's safe to say no one liked her. 2 months went by with nothing notable happening. We settled into a routine during that time. We'd take shifts watching the surrounding areas from the roof, listening on the long-range mics. Kim questioning every single thing she was told to do, and generally being bored. Supply drops were made every Friday. One morning, it was my turn to go up on the roof. After a couple of hours, I didn't think I'd ever been so cold. If I had balls, they'd be shriveling. I was getting ready to go back inside and send Samantha up here when I saw it through the telescope. There was a bear, lying dead about 1 kilometer away from the lab. Myself, Randall, and Kim grabbed our rifles and gear, hopped in our little truck, and drove out to it. The pictures Mr. Simmons had shown us were gruesome, but seeing it firsthand was something else entirely. 2 of the bear's legs were broken, along with several ribs. The most horrific thing about it was that its jaws had been ripped open, the bottom half almost torn completely off. Kim and I started taking pictures, while Randall kept lookout with his rifle. I leaned in to get a close-up of the jaw, and when I did, I realized 3 things. 1, the body was still slightly warm, which meant this had happened very recently. The creature could still be nearby. 2, there were no signs of consumption, just like all the other bodies. There were 2 explanations for this. Either this creature was killing for fun, or more likely, it was eliminating possible threats. 3, we knew it saw humans as possible threats. We were all 3 in serious danger. "Get in the truck now, we're going back." "I'm still taking..." "We have enough pictures, get in!" I enacted a new rule after that. Whatever could do that much damage to one of the largest land predators on Earth was not something I wanted to come face to face with, even with a gun. So whenever we spotted a body, we waited until we were sure a full day had passed before we went to examine it. There were 7 more killings over the next 4 months. Every time, we only saw the aftermath, never getting to see the creature itself. The bodies weren't there when we went to bed, and they were when we woke up. Mr. Simmons had told us we weren't supposed to go outside after dark, but if they wanted pictures, we would have to. I decided to keep the watch shifts going throughout the night. 3 days ago is when the situation started to deteriorate. I finished my watch and sent Kim up after me. She was supposed to stay out for 2 hours, then come in and send Michael out. She didn't. Morning came and she wasn't in her bunk, while Michael still was. She wasn't outside either. Her pistol was laying at the base of the ladder, though. Whatever happened made her draw it. We weren't equipped to organize a search party. Even if we found her, I had a grim feeling I knew what condition she'd be in. I sent an email to Mr. Simmons explaining what happened, and marked it as urgent. There was no response. I tried to raise our supplier on the radio. No response. Michael tried to pull up the video from the external cameras, only to find we no longer had access to the recordings or the live feed. We spent the rest of the day trying to contact anyone from the company, with no success. I decided there would be no more watching from the roof at all, and no going outside alone. We kept our rifles with us in our bunks that night. I laid there clutching it in fear, scared to close my eyes. Eventually, fatigue won out, and I drifted off to sleep. I was startled awake by a loud bang. I jumped out of my bunk and started swinging my rifle around. I almost shot James when he jumped up too. It quickly became apparent what had caused the noise. The window above the TV was cracked, the glass spiderwebbed. That window is a good 4 meters off the ground. No one slept again that night. We talked about making a break for it, but that's a pipe dream. The truck only seats 3, and with the gas we have left, we won't make it 20 miles. I think I know the truth now. We weren't brought here as researchers. We were brought here as bait, to lure this monster in. I thought at first that the metal siding of the building was protection, but now I see it's a beacon. When the sun reflects off of it, it shows everything within 50 miles that we're here. The company stopped contacting us because they got what they wanted. They have a video of the creature taking Kim. Last night the solar panels were smashed. We're running on reserve power, which might not last the rest of the day. The helicopter was supposed to pick us up 2 days ago. We're out of food, and don't have much water left. If you're reading this, our coordinates are 69, 17, 30.65 north, 156, 58, 5.32 west. Please help us.